I am Sean Webb, and this is Your Superior Self.
Hi, this is Zach Poitra, and this is Your Superior Self.
I'm Andy Mant, and this is Your Superior Self.
Hi, this is Sue Jackson, and this is Your Superior Self.
I'm Ginny Sarasvati, and this is Your Superior Self.
What's up, everybody? I'm Aubrey Marcus, and this is Your Superior Self.
What is up, Superior Nation? Welcome back to another episode of Your Superior Self. I'm Trey Downs, and as I sit here early in the morning taking my first couple sips of coffee, that's pretty good. I just got back from my 6-mile run, and I have a cup of hot Dunkin' Donuts coffee, black, no creamer, no nothing, no sugar. I'm a Starbucks guy. I'm not really a Dunkin' guy, but it's on the menu, so it's pretty good. They're not a sponsor yet, but I could drink it in the morning. It's fine. Today I have an amazing guest, Mandy Barbie, who is a friend of the show, who is a special person in her mission to try to awaken people to their greatness and to help them get better through hypnotherapy. And a lot of people hear that and they're like, what is that? Is that kind of witchcraft or something? No, it's not. It's actually something that professionals do to help you realize that you can control your anxiety and your anxiousness. So, but before I get into that, I went for a 6-mile run today with baby Boo here, and it felt good, felt strong. After 100 miles in the month of July, feeling strong, went for a 6-miler today. But I saw a sign that really just fired me up, because I've been just kind of been meditating a lot on my own journey, my path, and I've come to the realization that I am making and creating my own path. Like, I am physically, mentally, spiritually doing that. You know, there's no one giving me advice on what to do next. I'm just trusting to the universe that it's going to be shown to me. And I saw this sign, and everyone's seen it 1,000 times before, but I was running inside of a development, and it led down the street. And it was big, and it was bright, and it just hit me. It was like, it said no outlet. Everyone's seen these signs before, but it struck a chord with me, I guess, because what I've been struggling with lately and just trying to figure out on my own. And it was like, and I know it's just a street sign, but it was like, you know what? A lot of people see this no outlet sign, and they see it every day, but people live it. People live this every day. They think there is no outlet in where they're at and where they're living in their lives, whether that be professional or personal. And there's always an outlet. Just because there's no path doesn't mean that there's no outlet. You got to create that path yourself. And that's what I say I'm struggling. I am struggling, but it's like, it's a good struggle. It's fighting every day for something that you believe in, whether that is changing the way that you think through hypnotherapy, changing your brain waves through, from beta to alpha. I do that through running, and it helps me be more creative and more efficient in the podcast production. And in my professional life as well, it helps me clearly think about problems and how to solve them. It helps me in my personal life. It helps me with my family. It helps me think clearly, and I don't know. I saw that sign and it struck a chord with me so bad. It was just like, I guess people don't realize or don't take the time to stop to think about the other routes that they could take. And sometimes there's no obvious path. There's no obvious way to go. And you just kind of got to trust the moment. You got to trust, which leads me to another part of the conversation that I have with Mandy. We start talking about the moment and how we never think about being in the moment. It's always the ego that's driving us to the past or the future. The two things that we cannot ever change is the past and the future. The ego constantly harps on the past about you're not good enough because you did X, Y, and Z. In the future, you'll never be good enough because you can't accomplish this, and that to get there. But think about this. God's gift to us is the moment, the present, and having the presence of mind to realize that you're in the moment. And the only thing you can control right now is what you're doing, what you're consuming, what you're listening to, what you're eating, are you exercising? Are you consistently trying to get better? Are you consistently living your ethos? That is the only thing you can control, is right now in this moment. What are you going to do in this moment to make sure that you are living by your ethos, by the rules that you want to live by, so that you could possibly obtain that in the future? You have no control of that, and you have to realize that you have to take that control away. You can't control that, so you have to take a step back and keep fighting for that, right? Keep pushing up that mountain and believe that you will obtain that if you continue to create your own path, to continue to by doing these things that are going to make you better in the future, and trust that process. And I'm sorry, this sign sparked a fire inside of me, and I had to get that out, because I feel like a lot of people, even myself, getting to these habits of thinking that we have no outlet, that we have no way out of where we just came down. Whether we totally took the wrong choice and went down a road that we should have never went down, but we're there. And what do you do next? Well, you grab a knife or a shovel or whatever symbolic image you want to use, and you start hammering away at a new path and get yourself out of there. And that is my 2 cents. But here's a clip. Here's a preview of our conversation with Mandy today. It's pretty powerful. So
one of the principal tenets of, like, when we use a word like hypnotherapy, I actually used to own a company called Prism Hypnotherapy LLC. Mm-hmm. I changed away from it. My company is now called Palladium Mind, because every time the words would come out of my mouth, I found that it was creating a divide. It's a word that is either already misunderstood, or that people have an aversion to, or that people have already decided is something that will be useful if they're broken and need to be fixed. That is not the nature of what we do when we access the meditative quality of mind. That is a trance state. That is flow state. That is alpha brainwaves. That is hypnosis.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty powerful. I mean, she helps people take control of their own brain state. It helps them realize what's making them feel anxious. It helps them understand anxiety, the true source of that, and how to take that back for themselves and empower them to be the best versions of themselves. I mean, hypnotherapy is something that has been, you're seeing more of it now. It's becoming more mainstream. But back in the day, people frowned upon it because it was considered something that was very mystical and something that you couldn't see, and it wasn't a prescription or a pill that you physically took. And it's something that empowers us all to kind of trust the body a little bit more and kind of focus on our own brains and our own minds and help us cure ourselves of some of the anxiety and anxiousness that we're feeling. So I'm excited. I'm really excited to be able to bring this conversation to you guys. Before we jump into it, though, you guys can follow me on all social media: Instagram at TDowns80, on Twitter at DownsTrey. Check me out at yoursuperiorself.com. Leave me a message how you're doing. I'm truly, genuinely happy with a lot of the feedback that I'm getting about everyone's paths and where they're headed. And I'm very inspired by a lot of your stories. So keep that coming. And I just received a book from my buddy Paul Selig, his new book called Alchemy. And if you hear the banging in the background, that's my daughter tearing up my wireless keyboard. But yeah, that's the gift of the gift of kids, as they continue to tear things up. Anyway, so I just got this book, and I'm early on in the reading, and I look on the back of the cover, and there's a quote that just really hit me. It goes, "The gift of the times you sit in, humanity at a crossroads, is the gift of the unknown, the unseen, the unprepared for. How can I prepare for a future when all I have trusted and believed in seems to be falling away? You say yes to the uncertain moment. You agree that the path before you will be lit as you walk it, and not a moment before." And it really hit me, because it's like, you have to trust the moment. You have to trust that things will open up for you as you walk it. And I don't do that enough. I don't trust the moment enough. I'm always trying to take control. But this book is very, very well written, very powerful, and it's up right now for pre-sale. The author is Paul Selig. He's been on the show before. It's titled Alchemy, and he's actually coming on the show to talk about it. But get this book right now and support his mission, because it is important. It is something that I deeply believe in, and I think that these books, all of his books, will help you in your path, or finding your path at least. So back to why we're here today. It's to have a great conversation with Mandy Barbie. So without further ado, here it is, my interview with Mandy Barbie.
Hi, I'm Mandy Barbie, and this is Your Superior Self.
Mandy, thank you so much for joining. This is going to be freaking awesome.
I agree, Trey. I agree, and you are on fire. I'm so happy to be here. I'm stumbling all over my words.
So explain to people, the listeners right now, what your profession is, what your background is.
Well, my profession and my background are a little bit different. I practice as a coach and healer, i.e., I use a lot of hypnotherapy in my practice in downtown Seattle, Washington, and I also practice remotely with people. So basically what this means is I help people use the natural capabilities of their own mind in order to steer a problem or shift a problem for the better using the mechanisms of the problem itself. And this makes change happen at a subconscious level so swiftly and easily, organically, that it's just extremely gratifying and powerful. And one of the things I love most about it is that I truly get to step into facilitator role with folks. Mm-hmm. So I'm empowering them to claim change for themselves. Not the other way around, like where I've got the answers and I bring the answers. It's their natural knowing that comes forth when we work together in a really productive way.
So I mentioned to you earlier that I had just got done reading Edgar Cayce, a book that has just fascinated me in so many different ways. I read it literally in like 2 or 3 days, like the entire book. It's like 400 pages. And this is coming from a guy who is from the South, Kentucky, and he was very religious in Christianity, and he had this gift. He had this gift of being able to go to sleep or being hypnotized or whatever that is, and connect with his unconscious and actually help other people who were sick or couldn't figure out what was going on with them. And later on in his career, or later on in his life, he was able to connect with that same source and start giving more philosophical information, feedback about the other side, about God, about the universe. And I mean, it's just so fascinating to me. Like, so being, the fact that you do hypnosis, is that the same thing? Like, are you connecting? I know this is like this. I'm like coming out of the gate hardcore because it's like, it. Just because like I've been reading it. Like it's so crazy how the universe works. Like I read this book and next thing you know, I'm talking to you. But it fires me up because it's like, it's so interesting. So when you do the hypnosis, is it the same concept? Are you trying to reach that other person's unconsciousness because it's the all-knowing being or the all-knowing source?
I also share a fascination with you. So I'm going to answer your question as like truly as I possibly can.
Sure.
I love also that we were kind of brought together in like a fairly natural and almost like, I feel like almost like unusually coincidentally, it was just very easy and fortuitous for me for sure, because I appreciate and like resonate with what you're doing and how you show up and what you stand for, like so much, like we were chatting about just a few minutes ago. I have my lens for how I do and what that is. And you asked about my background, and I think it'd be fair to share that now. Like I'm an economist in my background. I got a master's in economics. I'm an undergrad in economics too. I love to optimize things. It has a logistical quality, but also has this happiness quality. Like, how do we optimize constraints? How do we make the most out of limitations? We all have limitations. We have limitations in time. We have limitations in, to some degree, resources, but I think there are very few objective, hard and fast limitations. And that's what we're talking about now.
Mm-hmm.
Is what is a true limitation versus what is a perceived or self-assigned limitation. And when we can tap into the part of ourselves that recognizes or remembers our limitlessness, our intrinsic capability, our sheer enoughness, our inherent power, like the list goes on and on, like our capability, all of these qualities, we don't doubt these when we come into the world. And you see this in your children's faces, like, but they don't start off doubting those things, but through different experiences and the decisions that are made about those experiences, all of us take on filters. And there's some scum on that filter, or there's a little bit of tarnish on that filter. And we don't see as clearly what we once knew. And through a relaxation of our critical mind, somebody like Edgar Cayce, he helped people simply to relax their critical mind long enough to experience the well of their own nature, like that deep, profound, beautiful well of capability. And I think when we stop analyzing what my experience is and how I kind of see the work that I do, I really see it in a practical way, that all of us have the capability, even if we haven't practiced it or used it lately, we have the ability to switch off the critical mind, and then we can switch it back on whenever we want. But so many of us are running in overdrive on that critical mind. One time, I think an example would be really useful. I was working with a salesman and couldn't be a better setup. He's like top in his field, number one in the country in his industry. And he came to me. He was anxious, and his wife had sent him, and this is like often the case, which I just am so tickled about. And he is sitting there, and we're having a great conversation, preparing to do some work on day one. And he said, well, basically, good luck, because I'm a control freak. And I said, well, how's that working out for you? And he just like, touche. He's thinking like, yeah, of course, that's why I'm here, right? Because I said, it's not about taking control away. How much control do you have if you're only running one gear? Mm-hmm. This is about relaxing the critical mind so that you can use a different way of using your brain. You can utilize your own mind power at a different gear, a more efficient gear.
Do you have to be in person to do this?
No.
You can do it.
No, it's beautiful.
You can do it over Zoom?
Yeah.
No way.
We can. Yeah. Let me tell you why I say that. I'm tempted to make a joke sometimes when people say like, people say you can't hypnotize me. Like, this is back in the day. And one of my very good friends, a colleague who was in the field, he said, I just hypnotized you to say that. We're on Zoom right now, and I just say like, you're hypnotized right now. You don't even know it.
I think we're all hypnotized.
Exactly right.
I mean, this is all just simulation, right? Like, how many times have we done this? You know?
Right. That's a great question. You've got my mind somewhere else now. As to the can you do it over Zoom, etc., one of the principal tenets of like when we use a word like hypnotherapy, I actually used to own a company called Prism Hypnotherapy LLC. Mm-hmm. I changed away from it. My company is now called Palladium Mind, because every time the words would come out of my mouth, I found that it was creating a divide. It's a word that is either already misunderstood, or that people have an aversion to, or that people have already decided is something that will be useful if they're broken and need to be fixed. Mm. That is not the nature of what we do when we access the meditative quality of mind, that is a trance state, that is flow state, that is alpha brainwaves, that is hypnosis. Like you just said, we're doing this all the time. We're already in trance all the time. It's a question of how are we using that trance state? Are we running in worry, or are we having a positive experience?
Sure. So I was reading a little excerpt off your website about how you got involved with hypnotism. And it's like obviously it's like what you hear most about, like people who struggle. Your father had an addiction to cigarettes, right? Like they were trying to get him to stop smoking. So they took him to what is it? Hypnotist.
Hypnotherapist.
Yeah. And was that able to work on him? Like, was he able to stop smoking?
No, it wasn't. Because the thing is, would you like to know why?
Sure.
I immediately go into the explanation. It's kind of it's almost a little bit, I think this is one of the more difficult things to understand about what I do. Like if you're on a football, if you're a coach and you have a field of athletes, like kid athletes, some of them want to be coached. And so you'll give advice and you'll share guidance and they'll be coached. And so you can kind of steer that player around the field because they want your help. But if someone is like, I'm not doing it, I'm not interested, that's not for me, you don't know, I don't want your help. This is the nature of any type of therapy is the same way. It's like, how much do you want to accept help? Because this is always self-help. And if there's a misbelief or a disbelief about it, and the individual feels like they have to, in his case, for instance, if you feel like you have to transfer your control to somebody else so they can do something to you, a lot of people are going to be resistant to that, myself included. So that's why, per se, it didn't work. I think he wanted to do it his way, and he did eventually do it his way, but it wasn't that day.
Then you had some issues going on in college, and then you decided to use one like that, and that was kind of like what kind of fed this entire journey, right? Like that I guess that experience with you.
Yeah, I feel like this might be language that would resonate with you as well. I mean, I think of it like I kind of took the blue pill that day. Like when you get to have this moment, it was 60 minutes on the clock. You get to see something you've never seen before. And it wasn't psychedelic, but my consciousness and my subconscious were brought a little bit closer together like this, just by somebody helping me, even forcing me. Because this gentleman in Georgia, he kind of used an authoritarian approach. He was a little bit pushy. I wasn't super relaxed. I was quite awake. It was very difficult for me to relax because I had so much pressure on what was going to happen and was I going to do it right? But he said, how do you feel? And I said, I feel bad. He said, no, how do you feel? What is the feeling? And I said, I just feel bad. I was almost in tears. Like I couldn't describe my own feelings. That's very frustrating for a super competent 21-year-old about to graduate from the Air Force Academy to not be able to say my own feelings. I didn't know what was going on, but I knew I needed some help in that moment. And he just pushed me. He's like, what are you feeling? And then I just said what I was feeling. I let blurt out whatever. I was willing to make a mistake. I was willing to look stupid for a second and just own something that I was fearing. And that moment was really, he walked me through an experience then of being able to take that part of myself and meet some others. And I realized nobody dislikes this part of myself. Everybody loves her. And I was able to see myself in a way that I couldn't when I was analyzing myself. And this is the gift of doing even light trance work. We get to step into an alter reality that we haven't seen before.
And then that led to you basically just changing your whole path, right?
It's like in a way, because I told that story over and over and over again. I went on to graduate. I did successfully graduate despite some difficulty at that moment in my trajectory there at school. I served for going on 6 years on the flight line at Langley Air Force Base. And then I got out. I wanted a different experience. I wanted to explore. I wanted to go to the mountains. I went to Portland. I learned to mountaineer. I worked in 3 different commercial industries. A couple of them were highly regulated. One of them was commercial space. I kept trying to climb a ladder to get external validation that was never going to be given to me. And it wasn't that I couldn't have been happy in any of those jobs if I were happy with myself. But the fact is, I kept waiting for somebody to give me permission. And all the while, I was actually suffering with pretty severe depression and a lot of anxiety and didn't know it. I couldn't acknowledge it to myself because I was like, somebody else has it worse. Somebody else has it worse than I do. This is not a big deal. Probably everybody feels this way. And at one point in my life, it was, I don't mean to take it dark, but I mean, I was having suicidal thoughts almost every other day. Mm-hmm. And I was still minimizing that until I finally said, something's got to break, and I went for help. And a hypnotherapist was supporting me at the time and then actually helped me through all of that. And I brought medical team into it. So it's like about reaching out for help. When are you vulnerable enough and humble enough to ask for help? For me, the best resource on the planet was a hypnotherapist.
That is amazing.
And that's what, I'm glad to hear it. Why do you say that?
I say it because, one, to reach out for help, right? Like to know that you don't have all the answers, to be able to be adventurous enough to travel outside the societal approved methods, right? Like to go in some different direction that people are kind of like we were talking about, people are kind of hesitant about experiencing, but you're like, you know what, I'm going to try this. I need help. I'm on my last leg. Like, you know, you talked about the suicidal thoughts, and you know how many people have those types of thoughts but don't really know where to go. And then like, they're going to hear this, they're going to hear your interview and be like, well, maybe I can try this. And it's going to be a game changer for them, I think, because you're going to be meeting a different being. You're going to be meeting a different self when you go through this. Like, I truly believe that. I mean, after reading Edgar Cayce and doing my research on it and reading a ton of different books about it, like, I mean, I'm not a hypnosis guy. Like, I have never done it. I haven't tried it, but there's so much literature on it. Like, to be able to experience that, like, it's just an amazing thing to me. Like, to put your like, I don't know, you didn't put your trust in it, but you kind of like put yourself out there because you trusted that it could help, and it did. It completely changed your whole life. I mean, now you go across seas and you get certified in it. And now you're practicing it. Like, I mean, that's amazing to me.
Oh, thank you so much for your reflection about that. I think the part of my story that comes to mind right now is, I mentioned my dad before. I was thinking of him before I jumped on this call, because I remember a few days ago when I connected with you on Instagram, I saw the picture with your daughter and running, and it takes me right back because my dad and I ran into some epic things running together. His nature was just to do things and ask questions later. It was like, hold my beer and watch this. He was fearless and unstoppable in every way. And where I'm going with this is, I had to get all the way to the bottom. That's kind of like, I think that's kind of a common thread in our family. It's almost like a Barbie trait to some. I joke with the male relatives on the Barbie side, you know, that's a Barbie. Just totally fearless. But it's like, you can run yourself into the ground really easily. How bad does it have to get before you give yourself? And I'm not talking about my dad right now. I'm talking about me. I was running the wheels off of myself. I was accomplishing all kinds of things, but none of it was with fulfillment. And ultimately, I was at a breaking point. And none of this is said with a badge of honor. What I hope is knowing that this resource exists that can change things sometimes in an instant. Hope is the remedy. It is the beginning. And once you take an action for yourself, amazing things start to unfold for you. And I don't want other people to have to let themselves get to that point of having to be at a rock bottom before they say, I don't need to hurt this bad. This isn't helping anybody, and I don't have to break before I seek help.
Yeah, no, my biggest thing was just like you. Like, I was going after one thing after another. Like, it didn't matter how many successes that I reached or achievements, whatever. It just wasn't enough, right? Like, and then I read a book called Driven by Dr. Doug Brockman. And he basically talks about, we have these hunter-gatherer minds, right? Like, I'm a hunter. So, like, I always look for the next thing. Like, I'm always on alert. Like, and he goes into the science and basically the biology of my brain, which is, I identify it 100%. Like, I'm always going after the next thing. And in my mind, I create that ladder. I create that goal, that 100-foot pole. Like he says, imagine there's a 100-foot pole and you climb it. Now you're at the top of the 100-foot pole. What do you do next? Do you go to the next pole? Do you find a bigger pole? What do you do? It's a trick question. There is no pole. Right. We create the pole in our minds. The only safety that there is, the only way you're going to be happy and truly love where you're at is in the present, in the moment. And I've been learning through meditation and through prayer and through Zen and through a whole different other ideals, beliefs, and trying to connect with the moment and really live my life through the moment and be here and be present. Edgar Cayce's book helped me out the most because it taught me that, and this is going to sound a little woohoo for everyone out there. However, when I say this isn't our first time, he believes in reincarnation. And this guy was legit, like deep South Baptist type of, Christianity we're talking here. Like, he read the Bible, the entire Bible every year for like 18 years. Like, this guy knew the Bible, and, in his readings, he talked about parts of it that might have had reincarnation in it. And I do believe that we've lived numerous lives here on earth. I believe that we're here to learn lessons. I believe that we chose our lives to get the most experience out of that and take it back to our spirits or our souls, wherever they may be in the universe. And that's what I believe. And I believe that I am put here because I need to learn to be more appreciative of the now, right now, talking to you, and like being in that moment and enjoying that, and not looking for the next thing, not looking for the next interview, but it's helped me with my family life. It's helped me enjoy that run with my daughter. It's helped me enjoy, in giving my 15-month-old daughter a bath and be in that moment and playing soccer with my son and just really enjoying that. And I've toned it back with the interview. Like right now, like when I say I'm present, like I'm 100% present in this conversation. And I think that's the key. And a lot of people want to run around and look for things, external rewards, that dopamine hit in the mind, and it's not there. Like, I look at Facebook and I'm like, Jesus, like I'm ready to delete it. If it wasn't for my show, I would delete Facebook. I promise you that. I just
deleted it from my phone the other day. I got a really cool pro tip from a friend and a colleague, and she's like, yeah, I just deleted it from my phone. It's really useful. And I thought, ding, 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 because I've done it before, but it was from like a pushing. It was like I can't have this, or I don't want this. This is in opposition to me. But now it's more like this isn't serving me right now.
Sure.
I'd like to access it when I choose, but I don't need the little red bubble on my iPhone. Because then it's like it cues me to act because I'm compliant by nature.
Yeah. Well, it's an addiction, right? Like you want that.
I think you're right.
Everybody wants that dopamine hit, like that chemical in your mind. Like it's the same hit as like a cigarette. It's the same hit as like cocaine. It's like you need that rush. Like first off, let's talk about the technology and that we can't be bored because we are. I mean, technology is everywhere.
It's scary.
Yeah, it's programming our minds to always be stimulated. So like when we're away from all of that, we don't know how to reconnect with nature and slow things down. That's why it's so hard for people right now in this social distancing moment, this quarantine moment, to like just be still because they're so used to being on the go. And Facebook does that. Like every time you get a notification, every time you get a like that's a dopamine hit. Like, oh, somebody liked, and I've been studying a lot of psychology too. And there's actually in this book that I've been reading about morality there was a case study in it where people were put in a room and basically it's just like Facebook. So they're put in a room. They're basically talking like you and I are talking right now. Just having a conversation with somebody, just asking them questions, and they had a number on the wall, and it would, you can increase the number or you can decrease the number, and the number represented people that wanted to listen to you, and so there was no rhyme or reason. They were basically like, all right, I want you to start increasing that number when he starts talking about whatever subject, and the subjects stated in that study that whenever the numbers went up, their self-worth went up. And whenever that number went down, they felt like their self-worth went down just from looking at a number. And you think about Facebook, what it does to us, our self-worth, our psychology, same thing. Same thing with podcasts, same thing with people that go out and speak. We always look for that justification of what we're doing by how many people like it. Doesn't matter how we feel like the content is. Like I can give the best interview in my life, but if I don't get enough likes or downloads or people that share it, then in my opinion, in my mind, that my self-worth is it's not good. I
think I really appreciate you just being so transparent and vulnerable, like categorically, but because I do know that a lot of people, including myself, look up to you, and just to know that other people are succumb to that same pressure, it lifts us out of the bathtub. It's not like we're all in there together. It's like, let's shine some light on this stuff. Let's just air it out. And I think that's honestly, whatever modality that a person chooses, like when I said, I don't care what it is, just give me a medication right now, because that was the last straw. I'd already done some hypnosis, but I wouldn't allow myself medication. My whole life, never had it. It's like 32 years old, having suicidal thoughts, And I mean, every other day or so. That's messed up, because I thought, this is a first world problem. Everybody feels numb. Everybody has these thoughts. I wasn't going to feel like I was doing anything about it. So I just put it out of mind. But the fact is, everybody doesn't have those thoughts. And even if you have experienced far less severe sounding than mine, it's this malaise that it's not like the most extreme negative or the highest of highs that I'm trying to help people reach for. It's like, how can we find that fulfillment in the moment? And that's one of the reasons, if I may, that I think I just resonate so much with. I say sometimes, I thought for a long time, like, I don't have like a big energy. I'm not like a big personality. I'm certainly not shy. But I realized over time I have a neutral energy. And I realized through time, and I think a lot of people that need me, and a lot of people who I care about, and a lot of people that connect with and resonate with you as well, they're neutral energy people. And I think the world needs more of that neutral energy. We need to amplify some of that neutral energy and make that neutral energy big too. It's actually the first time I've ever talked about that. But yeah, I think it was a point of real maybe shame or question for me in the past. Like I wasn't big enough or I wasn't small enough. But it's like I provide a neutral energy, and it's
just it's being comfortable being who you are, right? Like that's the thing. Like we always try to be something else or be someone else. Like we see people, Gary Vee is, he's doing this, he cusses a lot and he's got all these Instagram followers and Facebook, whatever, Twitter. And then you see, Lewis Howes and what he does it, I was doing that too when I first started, right? Like when I first doing the podcast and doing what I wanted to do, I was copying a lot of their show, right? Like trying to create the same thing, like
emulate
Entrepreneurs on Fire, right? Like with
Mm-hmm.
John Lee Dumas. Like I was doing, like I looked at his webpage and he's like, he's making 6 figures a month. I'm like, I can do, like, he's not even asking questions. He's doing like a 20-minute interview. Like I could do that. However, people connect with that because he's doing something. His equation is that he does it 7 days a week. I can't do it 7 days a week, right? Lewis Howes, he does it because he's different. He's learned how to hack LinkedIn and get his followers, and he's already built that platform for himself. And then now it's, he is where he is because of that. Gary Vee has been doing YouTube for freaking like 20 years, created Wine Library, built that up. I mean, for me, I just got to be me. Like I can't be anybody else but Trey. I gotta,
I love it.
Yeah. And I still don't know what that looks like. I go in each interview. I don't plan things out. I do a little research. I try to connect with people on a personal level, on a vulnerable level, because it's like, that's who I am. Like when I'm having a conversation with you right now, like I would have a conversation with anybody. And a lot of people forget that. They look at Instagram, they want to be social media influencers, like, and they post some dumb shit. Like, it's just, be you, be freaking you, whatever that may be. Like, be vulnerable as shit. Like, if you feel stupid in the moment, say you feel stupid in the moment. If you feel like you've really done really well for yourself, say that you've really done well for yourself and whatever you're talking about. But just be you, be honest, be transparent. And I promise you that your energy levels will rise automatically, because you're not trying to be something that you're not, and you'll be able to resonate with that so much more.
Wow, that's such a huge like gold nugget. That's so true, and I haven't thought about that for a long time. How it's our nature to rise. Our energy levels are naturally high. I agree completely. It's buoyancy when we drop some of this trying and effortful work. Let me ask, I'm really curious your thoughts on this. When we're talking about just being ourselves, I think that one of the biggest challenges that people sometimes have is something you touched on, which is also, it can feel this question of like, who is that? And I think, I can certainly comment on it as well, because I feel passionately about it. It's like when you step into the space of stillness and you got to sit with yourself in that quiet a little bit. And I don't even mean fancy meditation or anything. My background is very, very Zen based as well. So I get that. But if people are just starting out, how do you connect with and trust that? That is something that I help people with, but I'm really curious your thoughts on it.
So what I did to find out what I like and what I don't like was I had to take time for myself. I had to really disconnect to reconnect. I had to step away from all the fucking noise out there, and I had to figure out what it was that really fired me up. Like, what was it? And it doesn't happen like all the time. Like, it does not happen quick. It happens over time. Like, you have to implement things in your life to kind of help you along. I put a routine in my life where I get up, and right now it's a little off just because of the quarantine situation and homeschool and everything like that. But I try to get up early, do meditation, running has changed my life 100%. As far as getting my energy levels up and feeling active in the morning and accomplishing something very early on. It's like making your bed, right? They say make your bed as soon as you get up, and that's your first, win for the day. Running for me is my first win. And you really got to just try things. Like, if you don't fucking like doing something, like you just, it doesn't feel right. Like, you just know it's not like you, right? Like, I like rap music and I like country music. Like, I just like it. It is who I am. I don't like talking about politics, so I'm not going to talk about politics. It's just owning who you are. Like, if you really, like, when you're having a conversation with somebody, if you like something or not. Like, I am intrigued by hypnosis and what you're doing in your line of work. So, of course, I feel that interest. I feel that, the positivity when I start listening to what you're saying. And I mean, I think you just have to take a step back. I think you have to disconnect, like I said, and you have to take long walks, and you have to meditate, and you have to really kind of listen to that inner voice. And because of the technology and everything that's going on, I feel like our voice has been basically turned down. You know, like I said, social media, I mean, I'm addicted to it, you know, Instagram, but I like the idea of being creative, right? Like taking a picture of something that is creative, right? Like that Instagram to me isn't as bad as Facebook, because I can post something that doesn't really necessarily have to have a political post or some kind of
image
message.
based.
Yeah, it's image based. But and I'm just speaking because I spend a lot of time on like inside of here in my head, like all the time, all day.
Right.
I think what helped me figure out what I like is just by trying things and by taking a step back and really, really figuring out who I am. Because I was a follower. For a long time. In high school, I was a follower. I remember walking into my high school with a freaking Hawaiian shirt on when like PacSun first came out. Like I'm from Delaware, and we have a beach that's like 30 minutes away, and you know, we were always going to the beach, and we like to be the locals. And I remember walking into a high school with a Hawaiian shirt on, and basically it's a blue collar town. It's, you know, we were a bunch of rednecks back then. And people were making fun of me. Like, it was just like, you know, and I was like, you know, but the stubborn side of me was like, I'm wearing this goddamn shirt. I don't care. Like, I like it. It's blue. It's got flowers all over it. I don't care. I like it. I'm a local guy. I like the beach. I'm going to wear it. And then it didn't take long for them, you know, people to start saying things that kind of like program me not to wear it as much. Right. Because we kind of collapse to social pressure, and knowing who you are, like who you truly are, is not going to be that easily influenced. Like, you're going to be able to stand up for what you believe in. If you can't 100% fully stand up for what you believe in, that's probably not who you are.
The observation that I'm feeling is, and I want to get your sense of this. I think that you've already devoted. I relate to your journey because I'm an inward person as well. I go inward to find out. And in so many cases, not enough. But many people, one, aren't oriented that way. And there are reasons why. And in many cases, it's also a positive thing to look external. Like, I go inward to a fault. Hence, I run the down spectrum emotions as if things aren't going well. That's the drift that I take. But I think that there's like a gap between if that self-esteem is also so damaged. One thing that I observe is and self-esteem is, I think, kind of a loaded word. I understand it's kind of like a feely word, which inherently turns me off. But to me, I call it right sight. Are we seeing ourselves in the right light? Are we seeing ourselves accurately in relation to others? Are we judging ourselves accurately to the way that others would judge us? Or are we taking the worst case scenario and blowing it up huge? These are self-protection mechanisms. And when we're down that rabbit hole, I just want to honor the fact that this is what I have my hands elbows deep in every day with people. It's a hop, skip, and a jump to repair it when you're in the subconscious, because you're in the place where the problem is. Because you can say, well, I know that I'm good enough. I know that I'm not an idiot, but I always feel that I am. What you feel is what's making a difference. So if you feel it, it doesn't matter that you can say, yeah, but I know it's not true, because your body believes different. And that's been internalized in order to survive, in order to protect you from situations that could embarrass you, because social ostracization is akin to death to our physiology and to our neurology and our awareness. So I wonder if others out there might be hearing, well, how do I even get started when I just feel like so disconnected from my own inner knowing, or unable to make time for that routine? Do you know what I mean? Like, even sometimes I think that first step of how the hell do I prioritize myself? That first little step, it can be really hard. And
well, your key word is awareness, right? Like you have to be aware, like emotional intelligence. Google that. Read books like from my boy Sean Webb, who he wrote the book Mind Hacking Happiness, and it's basically like it's a not two version book, but it's like 1,500 pages, so it's 2 volumes, and he basically teaches you how to turn your mind in on itself, like that awareness, that psychological awareness. So for everyone out there, just next time you get into an argument, next time you get into some kind of difficult situation, you'll feel something before you think it. And it's that feeling that triggers the thought, that triggers the morality of it, whether it's good or bad. And in order to control that trigger, you have to first be aware that your body is feeling something, that feeling, that emotion, and then your mind will follow, and then morality will come in and say if it's right or wrong. So if you can turn your mind in on itself and realize that whenever you're in, it's kind of like weird because you got to be that neutral thing, right? Like you got to be aware of the body. You got to be aware of the body and be aware of the mind. And like say you and I are having a conversation and you're saying something that I don't necessarily agree with, like I have to immediately be aware to like, all right, how is my body reacting? Well, I'm feeling a little bit of uncomfortableness here. I'm feeling a little stress here. Okay, well, that's just because the body's reacting. That's the elephant, right? Like we call it the elephant, and the monkey is the mind. And the elephant will just go crazy, right? Like the only way to control the elephant is if you just lead him a little bit, right? Like you can't be crazy enough where you're poking him with a stick, because then he's just going to run around like crazy. You kind of got to lead him a little bit, and how you do that is through meditation, right? Like to try to control the emotion. So next time you guys are in a situation, just be aware of that. Be aware of how your body is. Like you get into a fight, be aware of it. Where does that emotion, what do you feel the most anger, right? Like it's not in the mind, it's in the body, and then the mind follows. And I've been reading this book about morality that I was talking about earlier. I think it was the early philosophers thought it was mind then body, but
right
over the years it's not. It's emotion then mind. And then
I want to play off of that a little bit. I often say that attention is the only thing we can control. It's the only thing that's really ours, because everything else is out of control. But where you direct your attention is what you can control. And I just think that's my kind of filter on what this beautiful piece of wisdom is that you just shared, that if you're not aware of what's going on in your body, who's going to be? And then all of a sudden you're in another place emotionally and you don't remember why. And this, just to make it a bit personal again, this is what was happening to me increasingly so throughout my life up until the moment in the hypnotherapist's office when I was 21. And we brought those two back together to have a conversation. And just to demystify a little bit, like what I do versus what everything, I see what I do as one working with imagery by helping people close their eyes and direct their attention inward. That's the same thing. We're all using the same tools. And I really like to foot stomp this with people because there's so many different solutions out there. But anybody who's doing something that really moves the dirt, that really changes things permanently, they're using the same thing. And it's a resolution of the argument that's happening inside you by letting one part of you have a resolution, a conversation with the other. And you can do that by taking your critical mind out of the conversation. While your critical mind is all involved between two competing feelings or beliefs that are stored in the subconscious, which is basically the same thing, a belief that something is true, a feeling that something is true, you're never going to have the resolution. But if you can get that inner part to have the resolution at the subconscious level with the other through awareness, then there's permanent change that's happening. You get that lift.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think next time you hear that word triggered, like you hear it all the time on Facebook, it's because you're being triggered emotionally. That leads to people going on the internet and writing some type of negativity on a status or a photo. It's like that emotion. Everything you see on on Facebook. I'm going to calm down because the emotion inside of me right now, it's from emotional trigger. So, but how, like, so you and I were talking earlier, and I want to bring this up because it's something that I think a lot of people will get a lot of value out of, especially from your experience. But you had talked about losing your father, right?
Mm-hmm.
How was your path led you in preparing for that? Like, was it 2 years ago or 3 years ago?
It was 3 years ago in February.
So everything that you went through up to that point, right, has developed you in some way. Like getting through that loss, like that tragic loss, which I'm so sorry for. I have not lost a parent yet. I can't imagine, but how has it helped you cope with that?
I think I mentioned while we were here in this conversation that Zen is a huge part of my journey. When I was first introduced to a book called The Power of Flow by a stranger on an airplane. I'm one of those people that will, like, if somebody's like kind to me or we have an authentic interaction, we'll chat for a few minutes. And just one of those humans, like, much like we're talking about the synchronicity of meeting each other and that your paths crossed for a reason. It wasn't 15 minutes of conversation on probably like a 5-hour flight. I think I was flying to Hawaii from the West Coast or something. And he recommended the book, The Power of Flow. And I followed through and I bought it and I read it. And I was in yoga teacher training at the time. And mind you guys, remember, I am hyper logical. I am science-based, analyze it into the ground, make a plan and follow it type of a person. But yoga really transformed things for me. It was the first time in my life, some days after hypnotherapist experience in North Georgia when I was 21, maybe 4 or 5 years later, I've been doing yoga for a couple of years as a way to really beat myself up after the end of a long run and work myself into the ground and sweat a little more and gain some flexibility and burn some more calories. And I was looking into a pool of sweat underneath my face, and the yoga teacher said, now someday this pose, downward dog, is going to be a rest pose. And I was like, who are you kidding? And she said, don't compare yourself to people around you. And it probably was the 30th or 50th, 100th time somebody had ever said that to me in a yoga classroom. But it wasn't until then, when I was basically enraged, that I was driving myself harder than I was prepared for at that moment, that it sunk in. The work is to stop judging myself. I'm the one that's doing this to myself. I'm the one that's creating this adverse reaction to physical activity that I'm choosing. And it put me on this path. And next thing you know, I'm reading Zen and I'm becoming a yoga teacher. And I realized I don't want to be a yoga teacher, but through a series of setbacks in my mid-20s and real difficulties and trauma in largely the work environment, many self-inflicted, I really, really started walking a path of stoicism and took extreme responsibility for what my thoughts were doing without my permission. After this revelation about non-judgment, I was like, look, who I give my power to in social media, in workplace, etc., where I let affect me, and also how I spend my time, who I say yes to when I want to say no. All of these things are ways that we create our experience. And so that road of stoicism and really just taking accountability for my own thoughts and reviewing everything that I would decide or think, is this really true? I was doing Byron Katie's The Work before I even knew about it. It's like, I just realized if I'm going to allow myself to think it, then actions follow thoughts. And it's like a red carpet rolling out to who knows where. And I'm walking on it. And I need to arrest this back at the thought pattern. But meanwhile, I'm practicing mind-body connection really vigorously. So your question about like preparation for my father's passing, I mean, I also have a very positive perspective, and I'm just not going to focus on failure. I just don't focus on it. And until there would be a reason where I would plausibly believe something was not possible, I just didn't allow myself to go there. And so this is something that I think kind of, there's a middle road you have to walk in that decision. You have to remain connected to the possibility of if this is actually could go the worst case, while also just plowing forward toward a success case, because he was battling with cancer and we were full steam ahead. Just what can we do to help him to survive? And what we thought was like a kind of a plotting graph of up and down was really just about to plummet. And he passed very quickly. And it's the hardest and saddest, definitely most devastating experience I've ever had. And I think part of that is just because I thought that I had mentally would have been able to prepare myself, and it was impossible to do so, because it's a very visceral experience to see the finality of a life like that. And there's nothing eternal. You don't understand eternal until, for anyone who's lost someone. But I will say, I want to give a breath right there. I feel like there's a rest of the story, but.
Well, you can't just not, I don't know, like you can't just
to hear what you were going to say.
No.
I'll tell you. So I feel like when my dad passed, well, my whole world changed. And it felt like I came back and gravity didn't exist. I mean, the table was on the ceiling and the chairs were outside of me. What was working before in my life was not working anymore. And nothing about it made sense. And so I was actually already practicing hypnotherapy part-time in Seattle. And I was sharing an office space with someone. And very quickly when I came back after his passing, he had such a work ethic. And that's where I got a lot of my work ethic from, is it's such a work ethic. And I feel like it was this gift from him, like a gift of, it's okay. You don't have to do this anymore. And it was never for him, but it was like he became wiser as well. Like he learned so much. We all do, as you see that things aren't permanent and that all of this is going to end someday. I feel like I got a huge, relief token. Like, how about you do it a different way? And what would that look like? And start now. So within 3 months, I just left my work. And I've been doing this full time ever since. And it was the best decision I've ever made. And I'm truly in my purpose. I get to help other people in the most powerful and empowering way. So
amazing. There's so much that I want to talk about with that. So in the book, I know I keep going back to Edward Casey, but
bring it on.
In the book, he talks about, I keep going back to this thought that we're here to experience things. Like, I feel like, we are these souls. And he literally in this talk, in his readings, he's had over 14,000 readings. He talks about the beginning of Earth. He talks about the beginning of everything. And I'm not saying that it's right. I'm not saying that these readings are accurate, but it makes you think, right? Like we are these spirits, we are these souls that circle, that came into this earth, that they came in the form of what I am now to experience human emotion. And that makes me think, I don't want to hold back from that. I want to feel everything in every moment, because do we not feel that when we leave here? That's the biggest sticking point to me. Is with your dad leaving, feeling that pain, but
a separation. We perceive a separation. Yeah, that's the hardest part.
But then, he's never gone, right? Because he's in our hearts. He's in your heart. The people that I've, my grandparents, they're in my heart. I remember them, their voices. I remember the smells. I remember moments in my life where I can clearly remember them, it's like they're never really gone. However, they're not here.
I think what comes to mind is like a question of meaningful or meaningless. And when you really think about presence and how you define presence, it's like you almost have to choose. And
but then again, here comes being the presence, right? Being in the present and being like, that's the gift. That's the gift that God gives us, is the now, the right now, because you can feel this, you're always going to carry this, like to be in it, because every memory that you have, most of the time, it's not because of the brain, it's because of the body. The body has some type of emotional reaction to a moment, and that's why you remember it, because you had such an emotional attachment to that. So the now is so important, because you need to really be in it, so that way you can develop that emotion for the memory.
I was just thinking this when I read something the other day that inspired me as well. It said that the memories that we make, by experiencing the moment fully, we're creating our memories. And I don't know, I don't think I'm saying it right at all, but I realized if we are in, this is going to sound really dumb all of a sudden.
Dumb it up, come on. You can't say any dumb that I've been in the past. So.
Okay, it's one of those like profound thoughts that maybe won't be profound, but that's okay. Because if you experience this idea as true, it's really different than when you just say it or read it or write it. And then how I experienced in that moment was, if we spend our moments thinking about what's coming, we're literally missing the opportunity to build an impression right now, to create that experience that we wish so badly to have. This is the moment. This is the moment where the memory is already being created right this moment. And I am having an extremely positive reaction to this moment. And I think presence has a lot to do with it, as well as the company.
That's awesome. Mandy, I can't believe it's been an hour. How can people connect with you?
Well, I do love Instagram, but I am also like, I'm not like addicted, you know. I love to serve. You are not addicted. There is no question about that. My website has it's a freebie. It's a total gift, and it's a way for people to access the meditative quality of the presence of now in the most enjoyable and easy way. And I've tried to foot stomp a little bit, because it's a real value of mine that this is open source. Everybody's helping you to access the same state, usually in a different way. I'm particular to my way because it really takes the self-judgment out of it. And it's also based in Zen. It also happens to be easy and natural. So that is available at Palladium Mind. Palladium is one of the elements on the periodic table, PALLADIUM, mind.com/your-superior-self.
I love
Super
that.
Super easy.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, and by that, we'll be connected in my little list, but otherwise I play on Instagram. So it's at my Palladium Mind on Instagram.
So Mandy, what do you want your legacy to be?
My legacy, a few things have popped up. So lately I'll be just as in the moment as possible right now. I've really been uncovering another layer to my mental, like, optimal health journey. So I feel like I put so many skeletons behind me years ago, and I know how I did that. But it's like sometimes we're eager to put the pin in something and say, that's done. And I've been getting really honest with myself lately that, you know, that was a layer, but now there's another layer to achieve, because it's not about something that's wrong that needs to be put away or gotten rid of, but it's more like, how happy can we get? And I have this concept of, like, I have this vision of, like, really being calm, confident, and deliriously happy and helping other people to do that. And my heart is in service to people that are putting their needs behind others. And I call those people the providers, because I think in the first world, the problem is that when you're a have and not one of the have-nots, the first thing that you're prone to do if you have a good heart and a tiny, tiny, tiny chink in that armor of self-esteem, it can start to feel like you don't deserve to have your problem addressed, or you don't deserve to complain because somebody else has it better than you. So I didn't really sum that up very succinctly, but I think being really, 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 really calm and confident, comfortable and deliriously happy involves getting honest with where you're not and feeling those feelings so you can let those go and release through the body. And I want to help other people truly do that too.
Close
dignity.
Your eyes for a second right now. Close your eyes. Think about the end of time and where Mandy Barbie wants to be. What's the first thing that you feel?
What about you? Oh, me?
Yeah. What is the first thing that you feel?
I felt
when it's done.
Yeah, I felt elated and in company with a lot of people. Like we're all high-fiving each other.
That's awesome. I love
Thanks. What a great question.
Mandy Barbie, thank you so much for joining the show. This has been so fascinating, so fun. I really do appreciate your time. I can't wait to follow you in the future and see, how you crush it.
Our paths will cross, I feel, and you are a rock star, Trey. Thank you so much for having me.
I want to say thank you to Mandy Barbie for joining the show. Thank you to you, the listener, for downloading and taking the time out of your busy schedules to listen. Please, if you could, leave a rating and a review wherever you get your podcasts from. It helps me scale the show. If you want to, you can follow me on all social media, Instagram, TDowns80, Twitter, DownsTrey. I'm on Facebook as well. Guys, thank you so much for taking the time to listen. Thank you for everything, all your support. I really do appreciate it. Until next time, later.